Welcome to the Behind the Art Inspiration podcast. In these special edition episodes of the Creative Lifebook interviews, the Creative Lifebook, oops, so let's say that. Oh, it's always fun. I'll meet with the co-authors of the book and discuss their creative life hacks. We will also touch on how the book has become a springboard for magic. In this episode, I'm connecting with artist Greta Olivas, and this is not our first podcast together. I think this is podcast either 3 or 4, I don't know. And she's the author of Chapter 7, Quick Time Creating to Get in the Zone. I'm your host, Caroline Karp, filming from my Clearwater, Florida studio. Let's get to it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the book. The Creative Lifebook is full of reflections on the art of living an expressed life and is written by Jessica Hughes with 65 thought leaders, wellness experts, artists, and creatives. And the foreword is written by Dr. Joe Vitale. And I'm chapter number 57, The Art of Expressive Living. Anyways, so Greta, talk to us a bit about your hack.
Thank you again for allowing me to be on your podcast. First of all, I love the idea of this book. I've been slowly going through it, and just everybody's ideas come from such a different place. My hack, being an artist, came from creating art. It's one of the things that I do to kind of get in the zone, get out of my head, that sort of thing. And one of the things that I like to do is paint really fast, about maybe 6 to 9 little paintings, have an idea. They're all going to be about the same, and just set a timer and go. And what I find doing that is that there's no thinking going on. I forget about everything else. I'm in that moment. It can feel hectic, but I'm totally present with the paintings. And one thing that I've learned throughout the process is that even if I try to make them perfect, they all turn out different. And the ones that I usually like the best are the surprise ones, the ones that end up a little bit different with the mistakes or the splash or something that was unexpected. That's usually my favorite part of it, which I tell people there's so many lessons in creating art, because it's a matter of being brave enough to do the thing. It doesn't matter if we mess it up, we can fix it. And sometimes the mess ups are the best part. So anyway, that's my little hack that I added to the book.
And I know, because I follow you, I've been following you for years, that you like to use your hands and really get into the paint. So in this warm-up exercise, are you using a brush, or are you also using your hands?
I suggested a brush because, first of all, most people are more comfortable with a brush. I think I did mention that you can use your fingers just as well. And it's a matter of just putting something down. I think one of the suggestions I came up with is I tend to do maybe flower vases or a pear or something like that. It's a simple design. And so sometimes doing something specific is a little bit easier with a brush. But a lot of times since you're in a hurry, having to rinse out brushes and all that stuff, sometimes I just throw the brush aside and my fingers get involved. And there's something to the touching the paint and working on the painting with your hands. I think it also probably gives us a connection of when we were kids, playing as doing finger painting. And so I think in that moment when we're not overthinking everything, it probably connects us to when we were a child. It makes us, we were creative as children. And so I think there's probably more in depth to the process than I can even understand. I haven't studied any of the things, but I pretty much, the way I like to explain a lot of it is just what I'm discovering throughout my process and how it's helping me get to where I'm at. And it's really my saying to everyone out there is, I don't know if my art helped me with my personal growth, or if my personal growth helped me with my art, but I think it's both. And I think they really are intertwined. And I think it's a matter of stepping back into our childlike self and being creative that helps us be able to look at things in a different perspective. So, yeah.
From looking at your website, you talk a lot about the universe and connecting to the universe and working intuitively. And I can see that in the artwork behind you. So talk more about connection with the universe.
It's interesting because the way I started this type of artwork was kind of, I just allowed myself to play. That was a big, probably the main thing that I learned in this one workshop that I went to, is he said, allow yourself to play. It's okay to mess it up. And that idea was scary and foreign to me as an adult. And so I started playing with the paint, letting it flow, letting it do its thing. And then when I came back the next morning after it dried, it was magical. I was like, oh my God, it looks like outer space. And so over time, it became my Cosmos series, because to me, it resembled outer space. And everybody says, oh, it looks like a nebula or something. And I was like, well, I don't know that it's exactly outer space, because it's more of a feeling that feels attached to the painting. So I think a lot about these things. And I think what I discovered is that, to me, it's more about our place within the universe, and it's not outer space. Because we are all, and one day it came to me, I was going, oh, maybe I just remember being stardust and being in space, and these things just come through me. I don't know. But I think I do growth every time I create them. There is a feeling that comes through each painting. And I think that is what makes me realize the connection to something bigger, the universe. And I think that's what I've learned, a lot of it. And I keep getting lessons throughout the process. I keep learning things over the years, creating my art. I learn different things. Probably depending on where I'm at in my growth, I see things a little bit differently. So.
And I talked about in my intro to the podcast, magic being created. And so as I speak to, the 65 different authors, I don't know if I'll speak with all 65, but I'm seeing common threads, and everybody is taking their opportunity of being in the book, and it's showing up in different ways. And some people have crafted something, some people are working on crafting something. Do you have any ideas floating around?
Not sure. I know that I do have a Facebook group that what I'm trying to encourage everyone in the group is to access their creativity. my main people that I want to reach are the ones that think they don't have a creative bone in their body. I can't draw a stick figure. I hear that all the time. And I'd like to call BS on that, because we all drew and played as kids. We've just forgotten.
Mhm.
And we need to tap into that, because it allows us, first of all, to see the world in a little bit of a bigger picture with more possibilities. It allows us, I think, to be braver, because when we're learning something new, we develop more and we keep growing.
Mhm.
And in order to come up with something new, we need to be able to be creative. And you have to, it breaks us from also the cycle of perfectionism, because there is no such thing. We think there is. It's very ingrained in us, especially here with jobs, with school. You have to do everything perfectly. But with art or creativity, you have to make all the mistakes in order to come up with a new way of doing anything. And so I think creativity is so huge and so important. And so in my group, what I usually do is I try to encourage any little things that people can incorporate to just spark a little bit of creativity. And even if it seems insignificant, you start to notice things a little bit differently. One of the little things I did is I had people just get their cell phone and just take a picture wherever they were and just find different filters and make it look cool. And one thing that people notice, and I know from my son going to photography school, is when you start taking pictures of something, after a while, you start noticing everything would be a picture, and it puts you more present to notice all the little things along the way. And you go, oh, that book, the way it's sitting there, that could be a cool picture, or that flower. And so many times we don't notice anything around us because we're so in our head that sometimes just a matter of getting a chance to be a little bit more present is helpful. And so I think in doing creative exercises, it does help us be a little bit more present.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that. I like finding art everywhere, just seeing the beauty.
Yes.
And by putting a viewfinder around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've done an exercise with the kids, where you just make a viewfinder. How do you just make a viewfinder with your fingers,
Mhm.
right? And just look through there and move it around. And, it kind of puts a frame around things, which
Yeah.
is, non-technical way of doing that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because after a while, when you walk, you'll notice the leaves on the ground, how they're laying there, or the sun peeking through the tree, or all those little things that I'm amazed how many people don't stop and notice,
Mhm.
because we're usually so busy in our heads that we don't notice all the beautiful little things that are around us. And I think that working with any type of creative tool helps us be able to notice all the little things around us, which is being more present where we are. So, yeah.
So
And
one of the common things, thread that I'm seeing as I'm speaking to all the different creatives, authors, the co-authors of the book, is this common thread that I think is happening in the world, in the universe right now, where artists are open, like their eyes are wide open, and they are they're noticing beauty. Like they're noticing beauty and how important it is for our well-being. Like that art is healing. Like
yes,
being present
very
is
much.
healing. And I think that even though we're in many different places all over the world, there's a connection that's happening. And maybe it's always been there, probably it's always been there, of creative people now voicing what their experiences are and why they're important. And there are people that want some of that. Like they want to either watch you be creative or they want to learn how to be creative.
Yeah. And I think it's like people think that it takes, there's probably some artists that are naturally talented, but I think that's kind of deceiving because people said, oh, well, you're just talented, you can draw. Well, I used to spend almost every waking hour drawing as a kid. If everybody did that, everybody be able to draw. So I don't know that it's necessarily a talent. And there might be, depending on the different arts, like there's, people that play music, people can hear it differently, or maybe it's just a matter of finding what type of art or creative thing is your thing. But it just takes a passion and a dedication to be really good at it. But then I want people to know that to be able to just spend time painting, you don't have to be an artist and have to sell the work. Anybody can do that for themselves because what you get out of it is more valuable than you can imagine. Just because we paint or we sing or we dance doesn't mean that we have to do it for a living or not do it at all. I think everybody should find some time to do something creative because it adds to our life. It adds, and it just changes the way we do things. I was thinking the other day, I think being creative makes you brave. And that seems silly. And it's like, well, creative is not life or death. But it's like we wire our brain to, okay, I'm going to try this, whether it works or not. And you do that enough times that your brain is not going to say, oh my God, you're going to waste paint, you're going to waste the canvas. And after time, you may be willing to try other little things, even if they get messed up, to the point that maybe it does rewire our connections in our brain to where we would be more willing to step out and do something out of our comfort zone. And it may start with just little things like creativity, like painting something and messing it up and knowing that we survived it. So it may be starting with tiny, tiny little things and getting to the point that we are brave and we can do bigger things. And I mean, I don't know if there's a science to that, but I could see that helping with the wiring in the brain, because I know when I first started painting, I would sit frozen with a big, huge canvas because it's like, if I put it on there and it messes up, that was this much money and I wasted all this money and I only have this many tubes of paint. And once I let go of that and just played, that's when the magic happens. And even if it messes up and you go to fix something, sometimes that's the best part. And I guess that's why I like that exercise, because you will end up with a mess on several. Some of them will be awesome. Some of the paintings won't. But afterwards, when you look at all of them, you'll see the difference. And almost every time, what you thought was going to be a mess is your favorite part. Or it might give you something that was accidental that you might want to recreate in something else. So yeah, I think it makes us brave.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Greta, where can people find out more about you and your art and whatever offers you have coming out?
Yeah. GretaOlivas.com is my website. There's links to all my social media there. I'm Greta Olivas on Instagram, Greta Olivas Artist on Facebook, Greta Olivas on YouTube. I do have a TikTok. I'm not on there much.
All right.
I do have a group on Facebook, and I have links to that on my page, on my website, and on my Instagram. It's called now my brain went blank. Awaken Your Creative Energy.
Okay.
And it's fun. I've made a pact to show up every Friday live, no matter what's going on. Sometimes if I can't, I video something and post it on there. But it keeps me showing up in front of everyone. And also I'm hoping that everybody joins in some of the exercises we do. And I'll talk about creativity. I have demos, I'll answer questions. Sometimes I don't feel creative and I get on there. And just to let people know that we're not always in the zone either. So, and that's okay. So, yeah, and it's hopefully a fun place to be. And I hope to be able to incorporate a little bit more things in the group as well. So
I want to thank you for coming and joining me today on the podcast. I want to thank everybody who's watching and listening as I share my love of fun, connection, collaboration, and art. It would be great if you subscribed by hitting the bell, I think it is. Being a facilitator of conversation, I pose an open-ended question. This time, though, I mean, I have a whole I've been using this as my research guide to learn about the artists before I meet with them. And conversation flows from there. Thank you so much again.
thank you. Thank you.
And I'm sure we'll see you again on the Behind the Art Inspiration podcast.